So there I was, Captain Maya Torres, standing in the boarding queue for the luxury cruise ship Stellar Majesty, trying my absolute best to look like just another tourist instead of a professional gun for hire about to commit the heist of the century. And let me tell you, blending in when you're carrying a plasma rifle nicknamed Bella is about as easy as explaining quantum physics to a houseplant. The Galactic Council had hired me to retrieve some stolen precursor artifacts from this floating hotel, and honestly, the pay was good enough that I didn't ask too many questions about the legal gray areas involved. 3 million credits buys a lot of willful ignorance. The ship itself was impressive. I'll give them that. All gleaming chrome and unnecessary holographic decorations. The kind of place where rich aliens go to pretend they're having fun while complaining about the service. Perfect cover for a job, really. Nobody expects a mercenary to book a vacation package. I'd done my homework on the passenger manifest. Admiral Krex, an insectoid military leader who probably spent more time polishing his medals than actually earning them, was traveling with his entourage in the premium suites. Professor Nibbles, a nervous rodent-like archaeologist who twitched every time someone said hello, had the artifacts in his private collection. And Captain Voss, the ship's reptilian commander, seemed more interested in impressing the female passengers than actually running his vessel. The security briefing had been laughably simple. Disable the ship's defense grid, locate the artifacts in Nibbles' quarters, and extract without causing an interstellar incident. Easy money, or so I thought. As I settled into my cabin, Bella safely hidden in a specially modified luggage compartment, I couldn't help but smirk at the alien families wandering the corridors. Three-eyed Zalarians arguing about poolside reservations, crystalline Mortocks debating the merits of various Buffett selections, and humans looking perpetually confused by the gravity settings in the recreational areas. The artifacts were supposedly in Nibbles' private study, secured behind some fancy quantum lock technology that would take me all of 10 minutes to bypass. The real challenge would be avoiding the various surveillance systems and making it look like an inside job. Pirates, maybe, or a disgruntled crew member. I spent the first day mapping out security patterns, noting guard rotations, and generally acting like every other tourist taking way too many photos of absolutely nothing interesting. The spa deck was positioned perfectly for accessing the ventilation system. The dining hall had emergency exits that led directly to the cargo bay. And the engine room was protected by exactly one sleepy maintenance droid who seemed more interested in organizing spare parts than actual security. By evening, I had my plan locked down. Wait for the night cycle, slip into the ventilation system, bypass Nibbles' security, grab the artifacts, and be back in my cabin before anyone noticed I was gone. Simple, clean, professional. What could possibly go wrong? Turns out quite a lot could go wrong. And it all started going wrong at exactly 300 hours ship time, just as I was preparing to make my move. The first sign of trouble was the sudden change in the ship's ambient lighting from soft blue to emergency red. The second sign was the voice that crackled over the intercom system, theatrical and dramatic in that special way that immediately screams overcompensating villain. Attention passengers and crew of the Stellar Majesty. This is Commander/of the Crimson Void Pirates. You are now our guests, and by guests I mean hostages. Please remain calm while we discuss reasonable ransom demands with your respective governments. I was halfway through the ventilation shaft when this happened, and let me tell you, nothing ruins a perfectly good heist like amateur pirates with terrible timing and even worse naming conventions. The ship shuddered as boarding pods attached to the hull. Emergency bulkheads sealed automatically, trapping passengers in designated safe areas. And somewhere in the distance, I could hear the distinctive whine of plasma weapons charging up. Now I had two choices. I could continue with my original plan, grab the artifacts in the chaos and slip away during the confusion. Or I could do something stupidly heroic and help defend the ship. Guess which option my conscience chose. I dropped down from the ventilation shaft directly into the main corridor, where panicked aliens were running in every direction like a three-ring circus designed by someone with no understanding of basic crowd control. Admiral Krex was shouting orders that nobody was following, Professor Nibbles had fainted against a decorative plant, and Captain Voss was nowhere to be seen. That's when I saw the pirates herding a group of Zalarian children toward the cargo bay, and any thoughts of staying undercover went right out the airlock. I pulled Bella from her concealment and opened fire. The pirates were clearly not expecting resistance. Their leader, a scarred humanoid wearing more leather than a fashion-challenged motorcycle gang, went down with a surprised expression that suggested he'd never considered the possibility that someone might shoot back. Unfortunately, taking down 3 pirates in a hallway tends to blow your cover pretty comprehensively. Within minutes, I found myself surrounded by very confused passengers and very angry remaining pirates. Well, Commander Slash announced as he strutted into the corridor, flanked by a dozen heavily armed crew members. Looks like we have a hero among the tourists. How refreshing. They confiscated Bella, along with every other weapon they could find. And just like that, I went from professional mercenary to just another hostage. Except now I was the hostage who definitely made it personal. Don't worry, passengers, Slash continued with the kind of smug confidence that made me want to punch him in his unnecessarily dramatic face. As long as your governments cooperate, you'll all be home in time for whatever ridiculous holidays you people celebrate. What he didn't know, couldn't possibly know, was that taking away a human's weapon doesn't make them helpless. It just makes them creative. Commander Slash had clearly attended the Villain Monologuing for Dummies correspondence course, because he spent the next hour explaining his brilliant plan to anyone who would listen. And since we were all trapped in the main ballroom, we didn't have much choice. You see, he announced, pacing back and forth like a leather-clad peacock, the beauty of hostage situations is their simplicity. We take something valuable. You pay us not to break it. Everyone goes home happy. Well, everyone except the insurance companies. His crew laughed at this joke, which honestly wasn't even that good. Pirates really need to work on their material. While Slash was busy explaining basic economics to a room full of people who probably understood it better than he did, I was conducting my own little survey of the situation. 12 pirates, all armed with standard plasma rifles. 2 guards at each exit. Emergency lighting providing just enough shadows to work with. And a room full of alien tourists who had probably never seen violence outside of their entertainment systems. Perfect. I caught the eye of a young Aquarian engineer named Zara, who'd been watching me with obvious curiosity. She had that look that suggested she was more interested in how things worked than why they weren't supposed to work that way. Exactly the kind of partner I needed. Excuse me, I whispered during one of Slash's longer monologues about the unfairness of galactic taxation policies. You wouldn't happen to know anything about the ship's environmental systems, would you? I designed half of them, she whispered back, her gills fluttering with nervous excitement. Why? Why? Because I'm about to give these pirates the worst day of their lives, and I could use some technical support. Over the next hour, while Slash and his crew argued about ransom amounts and showed off their stolen loot, I began my masterpiece. Using nothing but materials available in a cruise ship ballroom, I started building what would become the most embarrassing pirate defeat in galactic history. The tablecloths became restraints. The decorative flowers became smoke bombs when properly processed. The automated serving trays became mobile weapon platforms. And the sound system became a psychological warfare tool that would make military strategists weep with joy. I taught Professor Nibbles how to turn dinner utensils into lockpicks. I showed Admiral Krex how spa towels could be weaponized for non-lethal takedowns. I even convinced the Zalarian children that we were playing an elaborate game of hide and seek, except the pirates were it. And nobody wanted to be found. The pirates remained completely oblivious. They were too busy dividing up the loot and planning their retirement to notice that their hostages were quietly organizing the most improvised resistance movement, since humans figured out you could throw rocks at things that you didn't like. On. The thing about pirates, I explained to Zara as we MacGyvered a stun grenade from cleaning supplies and decorative lighting, is that they're fundamentally lazy. They want easy targets and quick scores. They don't expect their victims to fight back, especially not with creativity. Zara was a quick learner. Within an hour, she could turn a flower arrangement into a smoke screen and knew 17 different ways to disable a plasma rifle using nothing but dinner napkins and determination. And then Slash made the mistake that would doom his entire operation. He decided to make an example of someone. You know what? Commander Slash announced after spending 20 minutes trying to contact his fence about the stolen artifacts and getting nothing but busy signals. I think we need to motivate these government types. Let's space a few passengers. Start with the loud ones. That's when I dropped the helpless tourist act like a bad habit. Hey Slash, I called out, standing up from where I'd been pretending to cower behind an overturned table. Before you start spacing people, maybe you should ask yourself why a simple cruise ship heist is about to become your retirement plan. He turned to face me, and I could see the exact moment when his brain tried to process what I'd just said. Pirates aren't known for their critical thinking skills. What are you talking about, human? I'm talking about the fact that you just disarmed the most dangerous species in 3 sectors and then threatened to kill their neighbors. Do you have any idea what humans are capable of when you make them angry and take away their toys? The first pirate went down when he stepped on what he thought was a decorative floor tile. Turned out to be a pressure plate I'd rigged to the ceiling lighting system. 300 pounds of chandelier makes quite an impression when properly applied. The second pirate discovered that the cleaning cart he'd been using as a footrest had been modified into a mobile electrification device. Zara had outdone herself with the engineering on that one. You see, I continued, ducking behind a pillar as the remaining pirates opened fire. The thing about humans is that we're basically a species of professional problem solvers. We've spent our entire evolutionary history figuring out how to kill things that were bigger, stronger, and better armed than us. Taking away our weapons doesn't make us helpless. It just makes us creative. The third and fourth pirates learned this lesson when they tried to flank me through the kitchen access and discovered that I'd turned the automated food service system into the galaxy's most efficient non-lethal trap deployment mechanism. Getting covered in processed nutrition paste while being tangled in repurposed tablecloths is embarrassing enough, but the added indignity of being knocked unconscious by flying dinner plates probably violated several interstellar conventions on prisoner dignity. "This is impossible," Slash shouted, his voice cracking with the kind of panic that suggested he was finally beginning to understand his situation. "You don't have any weapons." "Weapons?" I laughed, triggering another improvised trap that sent 2 more pirates sliding across the floor courtesy of some strategically placed cleaning lubricant. "Commander, everything is a weapon, if you're creative enough. The artificial gravity is a weapon. The air recycling system is a weapon. The decorative fountain over there, definitely a weapon." To prove my point, I activated the modified fountain system that Zara and I had spent the last hour reprogramming. Instead of pretty water displays, it now shot pressurized cleaning solution with enough force to knock a grown Thuarian off their feet. The remaining pirates were starting to look nervous. Professional criminals prefer their victims to be predictable, and nothing about this situation was following their script. The really beautiful part. I continued, helping Professor Nibbles secure another unconscious pirate with improvised restraints, is that this is exactly what humans do. We take impossible situations and make them work anyway. We turn disadvantages into advantages. We look at a room full of random objects and see an armory. Admiral Krex, who had been watching the proceedings with growing amazement, started applauding. Magnificent. Absolutely magnificent. No wonder humans have such a reputation in the military academies. That's when Commander Slash realized he needed a new plan. Commander Slash's new plan, as it turned out, was to lock himself on the bridge with his remaining crew and call for backup while threatening to blow up the ship if anyone tried to stop him. It wasn't a particularly good plan, but it was definitely a plan. "This is not how this was supposed to go," he announced over the intercom, his voice now carrying the kind of hysteria that suggested he was finally grasping the full scope of his miscalculation. "I'm calling in the entire Crimson Void fleet. You may have gotten lucky with a few of my crew, but you're still trapped on a ship in the middle of nowhere." "Zara," I said, turning to my engineering partner, "please tell me you know how to access the bridge systems from down here." "I know how to access everything from down here, but she replied with the kind of confidence that makes engineers simultaneously the most useful and most dangerous people in any crisis. "What did you have in mind?" "What I had in mind was turning the entire ship into one massive weapon system designed specifically to make Commander Slash regret every life choice that had led him to this moment. We started with the artificial gravity. Pirates, it turns out, don't train for combat in variable gravity conditions. When the corridor leading to the bridge suddenly shifted from standard gravity to 2.5 g, then immediately dropped to 0.3 g, The tactical advantage shifted dramatically in our favor. "You want to play games?" I called out over the intercom after we'd locked onto the bridge's communication system. "Let's play games. Zara, activate the massage chair protocol." Every automated massage chair in the spa deck had been reprogrammed into a mobile restraint system. The pirates who'd been guarding the secondary corridors suddenly found themselves being very thoroughly and inescapably massaged into unconsciousness by therapeutic devices that had been optimized for civilian relaxation, not military containment. "This is insane," Slash screamed over the comm. "You can't turn a cruise ship into a weapon, or commander." I replied, activating the next phase of our improvised defense system. "I just turned a ballroom into a tactical command center using nothing but party decorations and cleaning supplies." A cruise ship is basically a floating city full of systems that can be repurposed for creative problem-solving. Watch and learn. The climate control system became a selective atmospheric pressure modification tool. The entertainment system became a psychological warfare platform broadcasting specifically designed frequency patterns that induced nausea and disorientation in most known pirate species. And the automated navigation system became a precision maneuvering platform that used the ship's own momentum to create strategic advantages. But the real masterpiece was what we did with the swimming pools. "Zara, you're brilliant," I said as we watched the security feeds showing the remaining pirates trying to navigate corridors that had been flooded with precisely controlled amounts of pool water, creating conditions that were simultaneously too shallow to swim through and too deep to walk through comfortably. "I've been wanting to test these modifications for years," she admitted. "I just never had an excuse to turn passenger amenities into tactical assets." The pirates' backup arrived just in time to watch their colleagues being systematically defeated by a cruise ship that had apparently achieved sentience and decided to take their invasion personally. 3 pirate vessels approached the Stellar Majesty expecting to find a routine hostage situation, and instead encountered a luxury liner that was actively hunting them with repurposed vacation equipment. "This is Commander Vex of the Crimson Void Fleet," came the transmission from the lead attack ship. "Slash, what's your status?" "My status," Slash replied in a voice that suggested he was having a complete psychological breakdown, "is that I'm being defeated by humans who turned a vacation cruise into a military campaign using spa equipment and dinner utensils." The backup fleet immediately began firing on the ship, which turned out to be exactly what I'd been hoping they'd do. "Zara, activate the mirror protocol." The ship's exterior hull, which had been designed for luxury and aesthetics, suddenly became the galaxy's most expensive deflector system, courtesy of every reflective surface in the ship being repositioned and coordinated to create strategic reflection patterns that sent the pirates' own weapons fire back at them with compound interest. 20 minutes later, the Crimson Void pirates were either unconscious, surrendering, or trying to explain to their insurance companies why their ships had been defeated by a cruise liner equipped with weaponized vacation amenities. Commander Slash himself was found in the bridge, curled up in a corner, mumbling something about humans being unnatural and definitely not supposed to work that way. The ship's automated systems had apparently convinced him that the entire vessel was alive and personally offended by his presence. "Well," I said to Zara as we surveyed the aftermath, "that was more excitement than I usually get on a simple retrieval job." The artifacts, as it turned out, were still in Professor Nibble's quarters, exactly where they were supposed to be. The pirates had been too busy planning their ransom demands to actually secure their primary objective. Professional criminals really need to work on their project management skills. Admiral Krex was practically bouncing with excitement as he compiled his report on human tactical capabilities. "Outstanding. Simply outstanding. I must recommend you for a commendation from the Galactic Defense Force. The strategic implications of your improvised weapon systems are revolutionary." "Thanks, but I'm really more of a freelance kind of person," I replied, carefully packing the artifacts and trying to figure out how to explain this situation to my clients at the Galactic Council. Captain Voss finally emerged from wherever he'd been hiding during the crisis, took one look at the aftermath, and immediately started drafting new security protocols that apparently involved hiring humans as permanent cruise ship defense consultants. The other passengers had organized themselves into an impromptu celebration committee, convinced that they'd just witnessed the most exciting vacation experience available in civilized space. Several of them asked for my contact information for future travel planning purposes. So what happens now? Zara asked as we watched the Galactic Defense Force arrive to clean up the remaining pirates and process the crime scene. Now I deliver these artifacts, collect my payment, and try to book a vacation somewhere that doesn't involve accidental heroics, I replied. Maybe a nice quiet beach planet with absolutely no strategic value and minimal pirate activity. The Galactic Council representatives were appropriately impressed with the recovery of their stolen property, although they seemed somewhat confused by my expense report, which included line items for creative use of spy equipment and tactical applications of decorative water features. Captain Torres, the lead investigator, said as he reviewed my mission summary, "Your methods are highly unorthodox, but undeniably effective. Would you be interested in additional contracts of this nature?" "That depends," I replied. "Do any of them involve luxury cruises, overconfident pirates, or the creative repurposing of civilian infrastructure?" "Actually, we have several situations that might benefit from your particular skill set." I looked at Bella, my faithful plasma rifle, who had been returned to me along with a formal apology from the arresting officers and a commendation for exceptional service in the defense of civilian populations. Then I looked at the payment transfer confirmation on my personal communicator. "You know what? Send me the details. But next time I'm bringing backup equipment, and maybe a vacation brochure for somewhere really boring." 3 weeks later, I was sitting on a beach on Serenity Prime, reading reports about how the Crimson Void pirates had disbanded after their leadership experienced what military psychologists were calling acute tactical inadequacy syndrome. Apparently, being defeated by cruise ship amenities had seriously damaged their professional reputation in the pirate community. The galaxy, it seemed, had learned an important lesson about underestimating humans. We don't just adapt to impossible situations, we turn them into opportunities for creative problem-solving. Take away our weapons, and we'll build better ones from whatever's lying around. Corner us, and we'll find 17 different ways to turn the situation to our advantage. And if you really want to make us dangerous, threaten innocent people while we're trying to enjoy a vacation. Because nothing motivates human ingenuity quite righteous indignation combined with enforced boredom. I raised my drink to the sunset and smiled. Sometimes being human was absolutely exhausting, but it definitely had its advantages.